In this session, we're going to be drawing the structural ceiling for this project. And so when I previously opened the structural plan for this project, you probably noticed that we've got waffle ceilings. So basically, the structural ceilings of this plan are waffles. And if we take a look around here, you can see how the waffles have been placed for each level. Do you see that? So we've got waffles to place. Now, if we take a look down here, we can see we've got a profile, which is of the ceiling we're about to draw. And down here, you can see it also says mesh slab type profile. It also mentions all levels, so that means this is the same for every level in the project. Alright, now here we can understand that these are waffles, where we can also see that the height of each one of these waffle bodies is going to be 24, with 8 centimeters concrete over it, so that makes it 32 centimeters overall. So in general, the structural ceiling or the slabs we need to place, including the waffles, will be 32 centimeters thick, but there's also another thing. You've probably seen the waffle families in Revit, and I'm going to also show you 3 of them. And you probably also know that there will be concrete going over the waffles. For example, if you take a look here, do you see this line? This is in fact the end point of the waffle, and then we've got more concrete going over it. So for example, if I measure the distance here, from this point up to the top, it gives me 2 centimeters. And then from here to down here, we get about 5 centimeters, which are going to be 8 centimeters overall. So we could specify 5 centimeters for the thickness of this concrete, and then we will draw a 3 centimeter thick floor slab to make up for more concrete. So this applies to the waffles, and as for the areas with no waffles, we're going to have to assign the overall thickness to the whole slabs. Okay, so here I've got 2 waffle families, which we usually use for any project where we've got any waffle ceilings. I'm going to open both of them so you could see, and then we're going to check out and compare their parameters. So right here we've got a rectangular waffle, and this one is going to be a little bit different. This one is more of a square, and also its top side is looking like this. Alright, so let's go back to the AutoCAD file to take a look at it again. And here you can see we've got some waffles, but the thing is that their types differ. In fact, we've got some other waffles with different sizes. We've got rectangular and full-on squares. So make sure to pay attention to these details. For example, this one right here seems smaller. So basically, we're going to need several waffle types. Now, if I go back to the profile, then we will see that the area from here to here, which contains the one of the waffles, comes with the width of 60. So it's 60 from here to here. And so basically, the value you get when you measure this part from here to here, that'll actually be the waffle's bowl or body. So that's what the dashed lines indicate. Your waffles are in fact tight and close to each other. So now we know that the maximum width of the waffles is 60. As for the height, if we consider 24 for the height of the bowl, and then consider 5 centimeters for the concrete that goes over it, then overall that'll be 29 centimeters. Basically, we're going to need to put 29 for the overall height and 60 for the width. So now let's go and check out the waffle families we've got. So here we've got 2 waffle families, and I'm going to make both of them available for you so you could use them. This is one square waffle, and if I show it to you in 3D, this is what it looks like. As you can see, it's void on the inside, and there will be concrete going over it. So obviously this one's also got some parameters to it, and if we go to its plan, we can see the width parameter for the waffle square. Now since this is a square, it has the same value for both the width and height. So far it's pretty simple. Now on the other hand, we're going to also need another height parameter for the elevation to which this waffle is going to go. Like we're going to need to assign the 24 centimeters. And then we're going to need to adjust the height of the slab that's going to go over it. And basically, this parameter I'm going to make available for you is overall parametric and has all you need. For example, if I go over here, you can see how many parameters it has. So we figured what A indicates, that one's the value of each side of this waffle. Now also, among the parameters, we've got an H and another H1, and I'm guessing those are for the heights. So even though we couldn't see them before, we can figure that they are for the height. But here you can see that after the parameters were placed, they've been deleted, And even though it doesn't eliminate the whole parameter, we just can't see the label. So I'm going to go over here and give them a test. You can always test a family's parameters when you are not sure what they are. So for example, I'm going to go over here and change the H value to, let's say, 350. Now, do you see how its height has changed? Now let's see what H1 is. I'm going to make that, for example, 280. And here we can see the change. That if I change the display style to wireframe, and then change the parameter again, then you will understand better what this parameter is. Let's make it 300. And as you can see, this was actually the height of the Waffle's bowl. This is actually the one we need. Like if I go over here, we said we needed 24 centimeters for the Waffle bowl, and the rest is going to go to the concrete thickness. So now we can easily readjust it. So far there goes those two parameters. Alright, so now let's see what R is. Here we have R and R1, so let's test them together. For example, I'm going to change this from 70 to 50. And it appears that we can't understand what it is from this elevation. So we're going to go to 3D so we can see the change better. I'm going to also wireframe it. And then I'm going to go over here to change the R value to, let's say, 80. Now we understand that this is the radius of this fillet. If we also go take a look in the floor plan, we can see it there as well. Now I'm going to go back in here and change it again. For example, I'm going to make it 100. Do you see that? This actually changes the radius of these fillets. So this way you can go on and test out the parameters to see what they indicate. And here we've also got a B parameter with a formula. It says A minus 2 by D pro minus 2 by thickness. We already know what the thickness is. I'm going to change its value anyway so you can see. And it goes for this part. This one's for the side's thickness. Do you see that? Now if I change it to 20, for example, then it'll become wider and closer to the square sides. So this one's also readjustable. Now we know what the thickness is, but what about this D Pro? Let's change it to 60. And did you see what happened? Let's go look in 3D, and you'll understand it better. So I'm going to go over here and change it to, let's say, 50. This was for the tightness of this part. So let's change it again to, like, 80. As you can see, it becomes smaller and tighter. Or let's also try 100. And there it goes. Now what about this D Top Pro? Let's make this 50. And as you can see, it becomes wider. For example, let's change it to 60. And as you can see, this one's for the top and the other's for the base. Do you see that? So basically, this is how easily you can test and understand and figure out what these parameters stand for. Now you might have like 1,000 parameters, but that's alright. What matters is what you need. For example, what do we need for this waffle right now? First, we need the height, which we figured. We could change not only the overall height, but also the height of the bowl. Now another thing we need is actually the dimensions of the overall waffle, and we're going to also need its thickness. That's it. Now the reason is because we're working with lower LOD, so it's not like we're going to need every single little thing figured out, even though this is a whole-on parametric family that can be readjusted in any way. So now that we've understood what the parameters of this family do, we can readjust it however we need. There goes this family. Now let's go check out what the other one looks like. I'm going to show it to you here. And as you can see, this one is rectangular, which means that you can assign a value for this side of it and make it different from the value you're going to be giving to the other side or the height. This one gives you a rectangle, but it's pretty much the same thing as the previous one. This one's also got some parameters like H, H1, but this one's got an A parameter as well as an X parameter. Now what about B and Y? As you can see, it says parameter B equals this A minus double the thickness. So that makes for the waffle bowl. This is the way that the parameters of this family are. So these two are actually pretty good families, and I'm going to make their files available to you so you could use them wherever you need. Now the only thing we're going to need to do is to load these into the project and readjust the parameters we need from them and readjust them to the values we have required by the plan and then place them. That's the simplest way of placing the waffles. So for example, let's say we're going to load this one into the project. There we go. And now I'm going to go into the basement to floor plan where I can start placing the waffles. So I'm going to go over here, and also remember that this one goes under the BIM category. So if you couldn't find it, you can find it in the BIM category. It's under structural framing. Now I'm going to go over here and readjust its dimensions. First I'm going to duplicate it, and for example I'm going to name the duplicate Kimia/waffle, followed by, for instance, the dimensions, like 60 for the width, and also for the height we said we needed 29. So there we go, we're going to name it. And now we can go ahead and readjust its dimensions. So first I'm going to fix its height while it displays in wireframe. Now for the age parameter, we're going to say that we need the height to be overall 29 centimeters. And as for the height of the waffle bowl, just like we've got in AutoCAD, it's supposed to be 24. We said 24 for this one and 5 for the layer. So I'm going to make this one 24, and now it should be good to go. Alright, now what about the width? That one we said was going to be 60. This one's easy. And so now I can also add some other parameters that the waffle requires. For example, I could assign a thickness value to it, or anything else that we need. We can always readjust them in the waffles parameters. But for now, we're just going to go with this one and click OK. Now also here we've got place on face and place on work plane. So now I can go over here and cluster the waffles one by one. Now also, it is better that you try to assign the dimension parameter of these waffles to your own family to make sure everything turns out correctly. For example, you could go over here, and we see this one's radius is 40 in millimeters. So I'm going to edit this one and change its R to 40 millimeters. And we're going to also add the millimeter at the end. So there we go. And so far the fillet radius is fixed. And now we get to readjusting the thickness. So we're going to go in here to measure how much thickness we need. So you see the distance at the bottom is 8, and on the top it says 12. So the bottom is going to be 4, and the top is going to have to be 6. So let's go back to Revit, then Edit Type, and we're going to change the D Pro parameter to 6. And for the D Top Pro, we're going to make it 4. Then we're going to click Apply, and it'll look like this. Now let's click OK so we can see, and here is the result. Let's deselect it and zoom out a bit, and here it is. So at this point, now that it's been adjusted, I could copy it. I could use copy or erase starting from here, and place the ones next to it through the end of the row. Now this seems to be a very exhausting process, doesn't it? Let me finish one row. And as you can see, you're going to have to copy and place each one of these one by one. There we go. And that's just one row for one of the levels. Imagine how exhausting it's going to be to do that for all the other levels as well. Now you might think to yourself that you could array at this point. So you're just going to grab the array tool with move to second. And also we're going to need to have it on linear. Now we're going to copy starting from here to here. Now how many do we need? We've got 2, 4, 6. So we put 6. And as you can see, this is also doable. Basically, you could do anything that'll speed up your process. And as for this one down here, this one is going to have to be separate. You're going to have to create another family for it and place it individually. So now we've got the most basic way of placing these waffles. This is the most basic way to do it, where you're going to be placing all of them individually one by one. And that doesn't sound very smart. Now there are some other ways that'll speed up your process big time. The fastest way is using Dynamo, where by going through some very small and simple steps, you can place a large amount of waffles. We're going to talk about that one separately. And now there are a couple of other ways, which are so much faster than you trying to place each one of these waffles one by one. Now, how do we do that? For that, we could go over here and open a line-based family. I'm going to go over to the metric folder. And let's say we're going to open one generic model line-based template. Once we've opened that file, we're going to go to one of those waffle families. For example, let's say this one. And then we're going to load it into project, and that'll actually be that family file. And then, for example, I'm going to place it right over here. And there we go. Now, the next thing I'm going to do with it is, you see this one currently has a parameter called the length. So I'm going to go ahead and array that. I'm going to have move to second, copy from here to here. And let's say we're going to go with these two. So that's that. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make the number of these arrayed items parametric. Basically, I'm going to give a parameter to the number. And let's say I'm going to make it an instance, and I'm going to name it simply number. Then I'm going to go over to the overall parameters. And then in order to know how many waffles we're going to need to place, we're going to go over here and say the length parameter divided by the height of each one of these placed waffles. We had the value of 60 for that, so I'm going to put 600 millimeters, and there we go. Now the thing is that these waffles over here have a different height. For example, if I select this one, go to edit type, then I will see the height's value here is 700. So I'll make it 600. Very well. And now I'm going to align this line with this side, and then this one with this one. Do you see that? Now whenever you try to stretch the length, it'll add waffles for you accordingly, like so. So this is actually a pretty good way to do that. And I'm going to also go over here to change its category. Place it under the structural framing instead. And now I'm going to save this family inside this folder, and I'm going to name it Waffle Line Base. So there we go. And now I'm going to load and use this one in the project. So I'm going to select the project here and load it into it right over here. Okay, so now we can very easily begin from here and go a little bit farther. And as you can see, there are going to be waffles. Let's start drawing a little lower from the middle here. We're going to go all the way to the end. And that's here. And there we go. So this is actually a pretty good way of placing a large amount of waffles. And you can also be sure about its accuracy. But also I'm going to need to move this side a little bit here, like so. Now we can easily select this and copy it. And as you can see over here, we can make for the other rows. You can use array or anything else to copy them. Now this one is so much faster than having to place the waffles one by one, because basically you're just going to have to draw a line, then array to make for the other rows. Then you're going to draw another line down here, and array for the others. So you could just open a line-based family, load your waffle into it, and in fact you're going to have to give it a formula. You could assign a parameter to the number of your waffles and have the length be divided by the height of each one of these waffles. So that's actually the simple formulation for it. And now I'm going to go ahead and draw all these waffles for the other rows. And then I'm going to show you the finished result of all the waffles drawn in this level. Do you see how easy it is? Now as for this one down here, you're just going to have to edit the type of your waffles, as in you're going to have to open another line-based family and load this family in that, then readjust it to the new dimensions. Now there's also a little trick you could do. Like you could go over here to that line-based family that you've created, right over here. Alright, then you're going to load that other waffle inside it, which means I'm going to go over here, select load family, and then I'm going to select and load that rectangular waffle I made into here. So I'm going to go over here to families, then select and load this family. Alright, now I'm going to go over here and place it onto these. As you can see here, I'm going to place it right in the middle. Okay, after that you could readjust their visibilities. You could adjust their visibilities first and then array them. So that means I'm going to go over here, then ungroup these, and then I'm going to assign a parameter to their visibility. For example, this first one I'm going to make it square. There goes its name. And then I'm going to select this one. And for this one's parameter, I'm going to name it rectangle. It is also on the condition that they both have the same width. And now I'm going to array them. I'm going to begin to array from here to here. And we will have these two. And I'm going to do the same thing with the rectangle. We're going to array this one as well to have two of them. Very well. And now I'm going to associate them with a parameter. We're going to grab this one first. And as for the rectangle, let's zoom in a little bit. And we're going to try to select its line. And we're going to associate that one with the number parameter as well. There we go. After that, I'm going to go over here and write a formula for the square and the rectangle. For instance, for the square's formula, I'm going to type not, open parenthesis, rectangle. And what happens is that both of their values are going to be going automatically. So if I check this one will be unchecked, and vice versa. So you could even give them formulas as simple as not rectangle. And that means this one isn't rectangle, so rectangle should be checked. Alright, so now I'm going to click OK. And now we can go ahead and reload this into the project. Let's go to the floor plan. And it seems like these previous ones have been deformed a little. So we could just go over here and do you see rectangles checked? Now let's duplicate this type. And to the name of this new one, we're going to add square. It seems like I've missed the S. There we go. And now I'm going to have square checked. And as you can see, this is how they will change. Let's select the other ones and change them back to the original. We're going to change their type to the square. And as for this final row we're going to be drawing, we're going to set that to the rectangle type. So do you see how it goes? Now you no longer need to switch between your families back and forth, but instead we've associated a parameter to one single family to make two types of it, so we can easily switch between the shapes. Alright, so now I'm going to go over here and duplicate this, and add rectangle to its name. And also let's not forget to check rectangle. So do you see how much easier it is now? As for this one, we could always move it and reposition it in the right place. So did you see what happened? We went over here and then we loaded both of those waffle families inside this line-based template. And then before we array them, we associated a parameter to their visibility. We've created parameters, we made one square and the other rectangle. Then we've arrayed both of them, and we've also associated a parameter to their number. That went for both of them, as in the number parameter I associated the square shape to was applied to the rectangle as well. They both operate with the same number parameter. Then we also went over here to automate the family, so we wrote a formula for one of the types. We made it not rectangle, or we could have done that for the rectangle and said not square. We could have done that for either of those. And also not to mention that it's not 100% essential that you do this. You could even be in the project and turn them on and off manually, but this one's automated. If one's checked, the other will be unchecked. This is actually a pretty useful way to operate the families. So for example, whenever I'm using any families like this, I also put not blank in the formula to automate it. And so as easy as that, we were able to use one single family, so we could have both of these types in one. So now I'm going to go ahead and place all these waffles for the entire level, and then I will show you the finished result. Alright, so here's the finished look of all the placed waffles for one level that I've just completed. And so we just saw how easy it was for us to use a line-based family to cover and place both of the waffle shapes and as many as we need. Because as you can see, it took us a little bit of time to place the waffles for one level. So if we were to place them all one by one, that would have been crazy time consuming. But instead, by using line-based families, because you can use array or copy the instances, that'll help speed up your process of placing these waffles instead of having to place them individually. But still, it's going to take you a minute to place all the waffles you need. So there is a very good way to do that, which is using Dynamo, and we're going to talk all about it when we go further. But still, what we just did is so much better and faster than having to place all the waffles manually and individually. And as you can see here, I've finished placing the waffles for one level for now. Now I will also show you the finished look of all the waffles placed in all levels. So as you can see here, we finished placing all the waffles we needed for all the project's levels. And let's not forget that placing the waffles for one project is a pretty time-consuming process, and it's going to be much more exhausting if you try to do it the basic way. Okay, so to sum up this video, we had 2 waffles to begin with, which you can also go ahead and create them yourselves. They're not too complicated to model. You could even create them yourselves and assign parameters to them, but if you ever had a problem with them, you can always check with me and I'll help you. Then again, I am going to make the waffle files available for you. And another thing is that in order to speed up our process, we opened a generic model line-based family, loaded both of the waffles in it, then we assigned parameters to both of their visibilities, then we arrayed them, and after that we also added formulas to those parameters to make it easier to switch between the waffle shapes whenever we need, and eventually change their types. And finally, we were able to place them.